Today I will look at extreme heat, specifically adequate temperature bylaws. In the city of Kingston, I'm recording this in advance, but there is an adequate temperature bylaw. I encourage you to advocate for an adequate temperature bylaw, which includes people without air conditioning to have temperatures below 26 degrees Celsius. And I will show some of the research or reportings. There is what's the title? A coroner's report in British Columbia. I'll look up first, and then I'll get into why Kingston's bylaw proposed is well, it's a positive step in the right direction. It should be improved. So let's see. That would be yeah. So this first report that I'm looking at is called Extreme Heat and Human Mortality, a review of heat-related deaths in BC in the summer of 2021. And it's relevant to the discussion because of heat, because it talks about air conditioning and cooling. Made some highlights in this report. In page 5 of the report, it says 98% of deaths occurred indoors, and 60% of descendants had seen a medical professional within a month prior to their death, and a lot of descendants lived in socially or materially deprived neighborhoods than the general population. And this was in regards to the heat dome in British Columbia in 2021, which saw record heat, and over 600 people died as a result of that heat dome. And some of the on page 19. Introduction. Okay. This says that core temperature of 36.6 degrees Celsius is what the human body maintains, and it could cause a significant, and if there are significant changes after that, those hazards to health. And heat stroke refers to core body temperature reaches at least 40 degrees, resulting in severe impact to the central nervous system. Those negative health impacts above 26 degrees Celsius. That's why 26 degrees Celsius was chosen. I don't see where it says that in this report. There was more than 800 deaths, this is on page 11, were investigated by the British Columbia Coroner's Service, I think that's what that stands for, during the week of the heat dome, compared to an average of 200 deaths during the same week in previous years. And it says that 619 deaths have been identified as being caused by extreme heat. And then they did interviews with family and people that knew the deceased individuals. And then they had like medical records as well. The coroner found that those who died were predominantly older adults with chronic health conditions and relatively compromised overall health. Most people died on one of the hottest days. 93% were injured during the week of June 25th to July 1st, 2021. And most deaths occurred when the temperatures were about 40 degrees Celsius. So let's see. There was like location data. And yeah, so it's talking that a lot of people or in private residences, 39% in multi-unit buildings and 34% in detached buildings, 10% occurred in social housing, single room occupancy or supportive housing, and more than half of the individuals lived alone. The individuals who died, and 30% lived with a spouse or family member. Let's see. And what's interesting is that few of the people of the deaths were linked to physical activity in heat. Most of the deaths were inside. Let's see. Indoor temperature were not available at all death locations. Instead, investigative notes indicated temperatures using terminology like warm, hot, or extremely hot, or described using an estimated temperature range. And then outdoor temperatures cooled at night, but the indoor temperatures remained high. consistently exceeding 26 degrees during an extreme heat event. Okay, so air conditioning. 46 or 7% of descendants, people who died, had air conditioning present in their residence. Of those, 15% were, and that's 7, were on at the time of death but may have been in different room or improperly used. And then fans were used in 24% of residents. However, 44% of descendants, it was unknown if fans were in use. Of those with fans in use, 70% had them on in the room where the deceased was found. So that's interesting to note. And then the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change concluded that the climate will continue to warm. Oh, and this is on page 22 of this report. The climate will continue to warm despite efforts to reduce global emissions, which will result in more frequent heat events. The human body has a core temperature of approximately 36.6 degrees. And then some health conditions include dehydration, heat rashes, cramps, heat exhaustion, and more seriously, heat stroke. Health problems become more pronounced during a heat event for people who are unable to avoid heat. And then high indoor temperature was the primary cause of injury and death using the extreme heat event. During this time, hot air became trapped indoors and continued to rise over time. Did I highlight anything? Okay. Not all people. This is vulnerable people on page 26. Not all people experience the same degree of heat risk during extreme heat. The elderly, people with chronic health conditions, persons living alone, and those with no access to cooling, and those in particular geographic areas were more impacted by the heat. Wider public awareness about heat and targeting community training and how to recognize heat concerns is needed. And then two of the recommendations, one of them is ensuring people have a way of staying cool, either inside the residence or elsewhere. And then there's a point that not everyone has access to social media, has a phone, or can read signage or speaks English as a primary language. So there's an importance of multilingual information. And then there's mention about like building codes, retrofitting, and there's a mention of a retrofitting plan and cooling measures for rebates, and this is in British Columbia. And then there's like different charts, heat-related deaths by place, private residence 242, 39.1, and private residence detached 33.6%, both percent, and then 56.1% lived alone. And then only 1.6%, or 10 individuals who died, were outside and not near the home. So this all sets up what I'm going to talk about next, which is the Kingston bylaw and why it's needed. So at the time of the recording, there was a city council meeting, but it's in the future, so But so you might, if you see this, the meeting may have passed. Definitely if you're listening on the radio. But I'll post this on my YouTube channel with the same name, Environmental Soup. And hopefully I can get it posted in advance. If you happen to live in Kingston. But if not, you can advocate for this in your city. So 63. I'm just going to the right page. Here it is. So it says, just trying to, oh. Council directed staff to prepare a report identifying, this is the adequate temperature motion update. Report number 25-020 on page 65 of the agenda for the City of Kingston Council meeting. So the Council directed staff to prepare a report identifying timelines and requirements for the development of a new adequate temperature bylaw to protect the health and safety of residents. And they looked at the feasibility of including support to residents via the Better Homes Kingston program or other to retrofit residential housing, especially rental units, with an adequate means of cooling by 2026. And then this report would require landlords or property owners of rental units with air conditioning systems to maintain a temperature not exceeding 26 degrees Celsius from June 1st to September 30th. So the key is they have to have air conditioning, but the findings from the British Columbia coroner indicated that there was people without air conditioning who were more likely to pass away. So that's the key thing here. And I don't know if June 1st to September 30th is standardized across at every municipality. I'll check that. So, and then staff are recommending that the residential cooling requirement would apply under the following conditions. The rental/lease unit already has an air conditioning system, which I pointed out is flawed logic. The rental agreement explicitly states that the landlord or property owner will provide air conditioning. The new building include an air conditioning system. And then it says, so there would be, if this passes, there would be a requirement for landlords or property owners of residential units with air conditioning systems to maintain a temperature not exceeding 26 degrees Celsius from June 1st to September 30th. And then there's going to be a report by Q2 with the necessary amending bylaw to provide for new maximum temperature residential units with air conditioning systems as part of the property standards bylaw. And then there's a request to the province. So City Council requests that the province of Ontario amend the Residential Tenancy Act to introduce a maximum temperature standard of 26 degrees Celsius for all residential premises and to include cooling as a vital service, as well as they want this is staff recommending. City Council requests that the Province of Ontario proclaim Bill 97, Helping Homebuyers Protecting Tenants Act 2023 into force to enhance tenants' rights to install and use windows or portable air conditioners. As those provincial election are happening in Ontario, I will limit comment on provincial legislation in order to maintain fairness as much as possible, and and then there's because this is going on the radio and those specific requirements around election. Let's see. There is a requirement to have heating, but there's no maximum indoor temperature during the summer. There is the Residential Tenancies Act. Let's see. It says under the Residential Tenancies Act, landlords and tenants can agree. This is page 68. Landlords and tenants can agree to install air conditioning units in exchange for a seasonal rent increase. Landlords may also prohibit the installation of air conditioning unit in the lease agreement. However, the Residential Tenancy Act does not set grounds for this prohibition. And then it says the right to install an air conditioning unit falls primarily within the scope of the lease agreement or left to the tenant to negotiate with the landlord. And then they're talking about Bill 97, which would generally prohibit private market landlords from forbidding tenants to install air conditioning units in their homes, provided certain conditions are met. Under the new changes, a tenant would be required to notify the landlord prior to installing air conditioning. So yeah, that's and so yeah, currently landlords can prevent people from installing air conditionings, and we know how important air conditioning is based on the British Columbia Coroner's report. And then there's information from the Ontario government that indicates climate change is significantly affecting various sectors, including infrastructure. And by the end of the century, most provinces will face over 60 extremely hot days annually. And then there's information about specific to Kingston. I have seen Peterborough, specific Peterborough information. The mean temperatures is going to increase from 7.3 to 11.7. Oh, the bottom is the current is 9.5. So the middle is the current, top is the future, and the top is 2050 to 2080. The middle is 2021 to 2050. And then the winter will be warmer. I made a video about how we need the importance of cooler winters. Those temperature extremes. So days over 30, it'll go from 22 to 48. Number of heat waves, 3 to 5. And this is specific to Kingston. And then the reverse trend is for the winter. And then this link doesn't work. There's a Keeping It Cool campaign. And then there's like a bunch of other cities that were looked at. The town of Ajax. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. City of Mississauga enacted an adequate temperature bylaw. And City of Toronto did as well. And then the City of Hamilton is in the process. But they all have maintained that the temperature requirements only applies to dwellings or buildings with air conditioning already installed. So I believe that it's an improvement because some people did pass away with air conditioning units. So if there would be some people saved, but more people could be saved in future events if an adequate temperature bylaw is passed. And I hope that if you're listening in Nordirong, you advocate for an adequate temperature bylaw that applies to everyone. Let's see. I think that's all the items that I had highlighted. I can look at some of the bylaws. I'll just go. Their bylaw was passed in December 18th, 2024. And an air conditioning system shall be operated from June 1st to September 30th so as to maintain an indoor temperature of not more than 20 degrees Celsius. But it is with all air conditioning systems for dwelling units equipped with air conditioning, and then it's coming into effect on April 30th, 2025. And then I'll look at this is Mississauga. They use the definition adequate and suitable cooling, which uses 26 degrees. And they say every landlord or of a rented or leased dwelling unit shall provide and maintain adequate and suitable cooling in all areas of the dwelling unit, and it does not apply to rental or leased dwelling units not equipped or furnished with air conditioning. A landlord and tenant have expressly agreed that the rented or leased dwelling unit will not have air conditioning or at the expense of the landlord. And then there's one more exemption. Anyways, I hope that you have a good rest of your day. I hope that you advocate for a strong, adequate temperature bylaw in your city, wherever you may be listening from. And I will be back next week, possibly talking about the provincial election if I get approved. Oh, and I'm still on YouTube. Okay, so, well, I'm going to end this stream as well. I'm just going to see how many people are listening. One. So I'll end here as well, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day.